Welcome to the stage, Senator Dave McCormick from Pennsylvania. Dave, come join us.
Morning.
You know, I'm not used to really seeing you in a coat and tie. Dave, thank you so much for joining us. I know the kind of, rougher, more rural, Western side of you. How do you like being in the Senate?
I love it. I really do. I feel privileged to be there. And, you watch television and, sort of the polarization that you see in the country. And it's easy to get a little frustrated or lose enthusiasm for what's going on. But then you walk out in that hall.
Yeah.
And you see these statues of Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln and people that have really built the country. And you just, realize what a great honor it is to be there. And in my case, I'm the 54th elected senator in Pennsylvania's history, and I'm the 9th senator in the history of our country that's from West Point.
Wow.
So I really feel like it's a great opportunity to try to serve our Commonwealth.
So Dave, the theory, and you're our first speaker today, and so the theory of this is to really focus on how the topography of the U.S. economy is changing when you think of it that way. And your earlier lives, you're an investor, major finance leader in the nation. I used to interview mayors, and there were data mayors and non-data mayors. I was always in data mayors who were taking in data, looking at a dashboard every day on how their cities were doing. I'm interested from an economic perspective, given your background, what ought to be on our dashboard that we're looking at whether the American economy is healthy, whether it's flagging, and what we should be looking for?
Well, I think the big picture, the context setter is, if you look over the last 20 years, you see that the economy has been great for a certain part of our population and not so good for the majority of our population. And so that was really the political dynamic in Pennsylvania. The median income, if you take out some of the wealthiest counties around Philadelphia, is about $52,000 a year. And so when you're living on that kind of income and inflation goes up, you're really squeezed because real wages aren't keeping up. So essentially what you had with the cost of energy rising and healthcare and so forth, and inflation, you had a working class, working families that are getting squeezed in a really profound way. And I think that's where the metric board should start in terms of how the economy is serving all Pennsylvanians, all Americans. So that's the starting point. So for me, I look at where we are a year into this, a year into the new administration, a year into my tenure. And I think the starting point was we had compounded inflation of like 22% over the 4 years. Real wages hadn't kept up. You had a regulatory environment that was making it very hard to do business. And I think a year into this, if you think of the economy as a ship, there's some big wins that are at our back. And the big wins at our back were the tax cuts, particularly for individuals and small businesses that were in the big, beautiful bill. I think the deregulatory environment, which puts a lot of wind in the sails of small businesses. So I think we're going to have more deregulation in this 4 years than we had in 1981, which was sort of under Ronald Reagan, where you had this huge deregulation. I think energy dominance is going to be a huge benefit to job creation, but also to bringing down energy prices. And I think you have all this foreign direct investment coming into the country, which is a job creator. So the things I'm looking at are inflation, real wages, how they're going up, job creation. And in Pennsylvania, we want to create an economy that creates these great paying jobs for our young people so they stay in Pennsylvania.
So I appreciate that perspective, and it sounds, I'm swept away by it. But how about tariffs? Are tariffs wind at our back, or are they winds blowing us back?
Well, if you sort of step back on tariffs, my view on this was the premise is that over 20, 30, 50, really since World War II, we've had a trade system in place that has increasingly been unfair to the United States. And we did it, I think, appropriately and wisely. Right after World War II, we wanted to rebuild Europe, rebuild Japan, so we gave them a special sweetener deal. And even when we brought China in to the world economy, we did that to try to bring a developing economy into the world economy. But those rules were not appropriate for today, given where those come in. So we have a fundamental unfairness that we have to address. It's an unfairness in tariffs that they impose on us, an unfairness in non-tariff barriers, intellectual property theft, and so forth. And so the trade agenda to create reciprocity and fairness, I support 100%. Now, there's two things that I'd say about that. One is the way the Trump administration has done is very different than any other administration in the sense that it's the entire economic relationship. So it's not just tariffs and non-tariff barriers. It's export controls, it's foreign direct investment. It's the totality of the economic relationship. So lots of good things are happening. Take South Korea, for example. The trade deal we have with South Korea, the trade deal is resulting in $150 billion of investment in shipbuilding in the United States. It's a huge boon for Pennsylvania because of the Philadelphia shipyard. So I think those deals that we're doing are great for our economy. But it is true that the uncertainty has created some challenges for businesses. Because if you're a CEO and you want to allocate capital,
right.
You want to move your supply chains, until you have some more certainty on what the regime's going to look like, you're not going to be able to allocate the capital. That's a drag. And in some cases, the tariffs have increased the cost on certain items. Like a good example of this in Pennsylvania is chocolate. We're the biggest chocolate, one of the biggest chocolate manufacturers, and the price of cocoa went up dramatically, and the ministry, and we had a long back and forth with the administration, and they made adjustments to accommodate that. So by and large, I think this is going to be great for our economy, but it does create some challenges in the interim.
You know, I have Jared Agan coming up in a few minutes, who's head of the Energy Dominance Council, which you talked about. You had this huge energy summit in Pittsburgh, and it's kind of like this. You brought everybody together. You're kind of dealing with America's future energy. What I've learned from everybody is we don't make enough, given what our appetite is for AI. I mean, there's sort of a connectivity between AI being this big geostrategically significant race, but AI, data centers, all of this kind of new investment is also driving energy up for consumers. How do we square that in a way that we don't get a rejection or a revolution over the AI?
It's playing out as well. The starting point is you don't get to choose whether you want to have an AI revolution. It is happening. Right. We are in what I think we'll look back on and say this is the most significant thing that's happened in our lives. This is like the Industrial Revolution on steroids. It's going to change and is changing everything. So the question isn't whether we want it to happen or not. It's happening. The question is how to guide it, how to make sure we're in the lead, not behind, and how to make sure this revolution benefits all Americans. So that's the starting point. Our summit was the Energy and Innovation Summit because AI and energy are two sides of the same coin. You can't have AI leadership without energy leadership. And so you have to have energy dominance to be able to do that. And it's going to be transformative for our economy, breakthroughs in life sciences. It's going to be huge for advanced manufacturing. It's going to create all sorts of wonderful opportunity and productivity, but it's also going to be disruptive because these periods of change are definitionally very disruptive. And so in Pennsylvania and nationally, I think what we need to do is ensure that our energy supply can keep up. And the key to that is permitting reform. The key to that is embracing, in my opinion, an all forms of energy approach. So my view is we should have all forms of energy. I just don't want to subsidize them disproportionately. I want to make sure that nuclear and natural gas and solar and all can prosper. And make it much easier to allocate the capital to do that. And what I always say to the people in the energy area and also across Pennsylvania is, capital and talent. The one thing I learned in the investing business, they're like water. Capital and talent will go to the path of least resistance. So you need to create an environment. So in my mind, we're not just competing against China. We're competing against Texas and Georgia and Kentucky, and to make sure that capital and talent comes to us. So we got to make it easier to do that. Now, in terms of energy prices, the risk is that we have the demand that comes sooner than the supply comes online to meet it. And so we're doing a lot of things to try to make sure we can accelerate that onboarding of new
one
supply.
quickie that's unfair to you because we're nearly out of time. But China, when I look at China, I credit China with raising hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Figuring out what it wants to do strategically, targeting where it wants to go, educating its people moving forward. And I'm asking ourselves, is for America to compete with that, which is, a big geostrategic rival, do we need to become more like China?
Yeah. Well, two things. In our lifetimes, there will never be an adversary with the capability of China. There's no doubt. I was a soldier during the Cold War. No comparison between the dynamism and the capability of China. But I would much rather have our hand than their hand. In other words, what we do and our future in sort of emerging as the leader in this depends a lot more on what we do than what they do.
Right.
And our economy has proven itself time and again to be the most resilient, the most innovative in the world. We're at the forefront of innovation throughout America's history. But the reason for that is the innovative spirit, the free market capitalism, the environment that allows people to have good ideas, fail, try again, succeed, attract capital. So we've got to lean in to what has made America the most innovative country in the world. If we continue to do that, I think we'll emerge from this moment as we have in the past as the leader.
Well, Senator McCormick, thank you for helping us to launch the first annual American Growth
Thanks
Summit.
so much.
Senator Dave McCormick, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Steve.